presentation number 2 on Biblical Africa. This presentation is on philosophy and application. As I stated earlier, Moses is our key. Moses is the prototype. The reason for this is because Moses writes the first 5 books of the Bible, and Moses is the prototype for all other Bible writers who will come after him. Throughout the Old Testament, the law of Moses was paramount, and in the New Testament, it's also very important. We can place Moses in time historically. I take the conservative view, and that is that Moses was born around the year 1526 BC. If this is valid, Moses was born during the 18th dynasty under the reign of Thutmose I. If we accept that as being valid, it would also mean that the book of Genesis was written around the year 1446 BC, around 40 years after Moses was born. Because Moses is our center and our beginning and our foundation, it is important to keep that in mind throughout the presentation. The traditional model for how we understand Africa's relationship to the Bible is this. We look in the Bible and we see Zipporah. Zipporah, she was Ethiopian. There's an African in the Bible. Simon helped Jesus carry the cross. That's an African, the Ethiopian eunuch. And so we look in the Bible and we see African people and say, that's Africa's relationship to the Bible. If we define Africa's relationship to the Bible in this way, Africa is not terribly important when it comes to the formation and understanding of biblical ideas. I would like to propose a very different model, because in order to understand the Bible, we're going to have to come through Africa, and there is no escaping that. The traditional model for how we see Africa and the Bible is problematic. And so in my estimation, there needs to be an insurrection of this contradiction in the paradigm. I would like to propose something which I call my original center theory. The original center theory maintains that we have to look at Africa's relationship to the Bible very differently. That is to say that Africa is actually the foundation, mainly because of Moses. This way, if we start to look at the Bible in this way, we can reconstruct the historicity of the Bible by using an understanding that Africa is indeed the foundation. To achieve that objective, we need to compare African ontology with biblical text. We need to compare African metaphysics to the biblical text, African customs to the biblical text, African writing to the biblical text. And most importantly, we need to understand a concept which scholars refer to as monotheism, that is, the belief in one God. This is going to require a lot of discussion because so much has been written on the subject. But let's say this for now. Most African scholars concur that Africans have always believed in one God, and the Egyptians were no different. So in order to understand Africa's relationship to the Bible, we are going to have to come through Egypt, and part of that is going to be comparing African worldview to the biblical worldview. And we will find that they are very similar, not because they are similar, but because Moses is the prototype. And this is going to become a very important understanding in biblical interpretation.